Hi friends. So today I have a very important video for you, and I don't know if this is something you're going to find anywhere else. I've not come across it anywhere else, but I hardly think that it is something that is unique to me. I'm pretty sure that this is just a different form of expression of the same thing. But to me, it was exciting because I made some connections that haven't been made elsewhere. And so I wanted to share them with you. And hopefully I'm able to explain it to you, especially people who are not familiar with this sort of knowledge, Gnosticism, Freemasonry, symbolism, and Kabbalah, Gematria, um, syncretism. All of that is incredibly important in understanding where we are. We are in a dielectric, magnetic, and electric universe, and all is atom. And so an atom is atom, and anyway, that's a whole other video. But basically, what this video is going to talk about is the nature of 0 and 1, which is pretty extensive in itself, and I can't possibly cover everything that means, but I'm going to do my best in explaining the fundamentals of it to start with. And already what I've uncovered is pretty astounding, and I don't think it's anywhere else, but it might be. Now, if you haven't seen my video on the phoenix and the symbolism of the phoenix, I highly recommend that you do, because it's incredibly important. That information that's in there, again, I haven't found it anywhere else, and it makes some pretty deep connections into understanding what Phoenix is, and I'm going to build on that in this video today. So if you haven't seen it, either watch it before you watch this video or watch it after, because the connections are going to be much clearer if you are aware of what's in that video. All right. So I'm just going to start with the meaning of 0. 0, and numbers are not what you think they are. They have incredibly deep meanings. They encompass a lot of information, and so do letters. Letters and numbers are symbols, and they stem from the zodiac. Everything stems from the zodiac, which is why syncretism is incredibly important, because everything is connected. Everything stems from the all, which is 0, which is nothing, no thing. It is the point of potentiality. Oh, sorry about the glare. It is source. It is darkness. It is no thing. It is darkness is nix, is night. It is the dark night. And I'll show you that in a minute. It is the void. It is being. It is. And 0 is O, is all. So this is just some of the things that 0 is. And 0 encompasses the word no thing, right? So I did a breakdown of the word no thing to see what I could find, and it was incredibly revealing. Now, again, like I said, each letter and each number are symbols, and they have multiple layers of meanings, and because they stem from the zodiac, so there's a lot that you can get out of meanings of letters, and I can't go into how I got these meanings because that would be an entirely other video, and it stems from syncretism and etymology. Etymology is another thing that you want to study, which helps you understand the meaning of letters and words, and you can break down the words and find other meanings in them. The word no thing, and we pronounce it nothing as if it is meaningless or nothing, but no thing is quite deep. The N is a negation, so all of the words that start with N are usually negation words, like no, not. A is also a negation. And O, again, is source, is the all, is God. T is the cross of manifestation. T is the percussive sound that creates. Certain letters create the percussive letters like C, T, K, K, X. Anything that has a percussive sound creates. N and M are sustaining letters. So when you say N, it sustains. M, so those are sustaining letters. So even though N is a negation, it also sustains, which to me suggests that this is also eternity or infinite. H is the breath of life, and that comes from the Bible. So what breath of life is when Abram and Sarah were talking to God, and God gave them an H to their name. From now on, you'll be called Abraham, not Abram. They put an H in his name. And Sarah, they put the H on the end of her name. I is the I. And again is the negation. And then G is the generative power. If you notice that within this word, no thing, there's two N's. So you've got the no thing. There's a break between the no and the thing. And then there's the other N, which separates the ite from the G. And the N, ite, you've got night. And then you've got all of this within this word. You have light without the L. But because, down here, because it has all the elements of light without L, which is electricity, it is no thing, which is no night, which is light. But it's a different kind of light. It's dark light, which what we were saying up here, it is darkness. It is nix, which is dark light. It is the dark night. So that's where that comes from. Now, when I was looking at this sort of breakdown of no thing, what I got from this was that this is the Kabbalah tree of life. Now, if you have watched any of Lord Assaron's videos, and I highly recommend that you do, he explains that there's the Kabbalah tree of life and then there's the jewel of creation. And the Kabbalah tree of life that the Kabbalists or the Jews are pushing is actually the jewel of creation. You cannot create with that tree. It's not a tree. It's the jewel. And what that represents is earth. And so what this is the Kabbalah tree of life. This is where everything is created from, because this represents source. This represents the all. And so when I saw this breakdown, I understood that this represents the Kabbalah tree of life, and that is what this is. Now, this, right, so this is the negation. The negation is the pyramid on the top. It is the 0, 1, and the 2. So the true tree of life, as Lord Assaron points out, always starts with 0. 0 is the source of all things. It cannot start with 1, because if you start with 1, it's actually degeneration, which I'll explain later on. But if you start with 0, this is how you create, because it creates an imbalance. I'll have to get into that later. Anyway, you have to start with 0. You have to start with the source of all things. So this is 0, 1, and 2. This is the no thing. This is the Ein Sof, the Ein Sof, and the, what's the other third one? I forgot. So this is where everything comes from. Now, here is the cross, the cube of creation. So that is the T. So now you've got the T, which is the cube of creation, and in that has the breath of life, and the I. And so that's what you have here. So you've got the cube of creation, which is the cross. And then if you unfold a cube, you get a cross. So that's where that comes from. And within this is the sort of cubed up version of the main point of the body of the tree of life. This is the top part of the tree of life. This is the body of the tree of life. And within that, the 5 is in the center. And the 5 is the phi, or the fire, or the spirit within, which is the pentagram. Okay, so the pentagram is in the middle of the cube. And now, so also 6 is the hex, is the sex, is the generative power. So from this cube, this line here, and this is my interpretation of it, so I might have some details inaccurate, but this is my interpretation of it. But this generative power stems down and attaches onto L, or creates L, creates electricity. Attaches on, it's really bad language anyway. So this is the electricity, which is Saturn, which is Lord of the Rings. Now L, this is creating the loop, which is 8, and L, electricity, creates Earth, which is 9, and 9 is all, everything. 0 and 9 are actually the same number, but 9 is all things and 0 is no thing, and and yet they're the same thing. So when you add a number to 9, 9 actually disappears, and so it is a number and is not a number. So say, for example, you add 3 and 9, you get 12, and you add the two numbers 1 and 2 together, you get 3, so the 9 disappears. That's what that means. Now, so 0 is source, 1 is mind, and 2 is thought. So now you've got this line here. This line stems from the end of the negation, and the O is the all. That is the 0. That is the Da'ath, which is Darth Vader, which is Dark Father. And then under here you got the other negation. So the two lines of negation, I was trying to figure out what those two are. Where's the 3 and the 7? Like, what is the 3 and the 7? Because you got the 0, 1, and 2, and then you jump to the cross, which is 4, and the 5 is the fire in the middle, which is, you know, the pyramid. And then the sex is the hex, which is 6. So where's the 7 and the 3? And so I realized that the 3 is the mirror, and the 7 is the second mirror. This is the mirror, mirror. So this is why it's connected to Mandela effect. This is mirror, mirror on the wall. And so this is a reflection. It's like a camera, or like the eye, the working of the eye. All of this is the eye. And so you've got, this is the point of origin, which is also another meaning of O, origin. And it's reflected through the mirror into the cube. And then that light is reflected on another mirror, and it creates electricity, which creates Earth. And I'm probably not explaining it very well, but that's how I can understand it. So anyway, and this here is Saturn, which is actually mirror, mirror. It is the 0 and the 1. It is the 0 reflected in itself. So this is the 0, and this is the reflection. And that is Saturn. Saturn is L. The 0, the reflection, creates a 0 in itself, which is phi, which is the phoenix. So you've got, let me show you here. Phi, this is the symbol for phi, which is the 0 with the line through it. But the line is representative of mind. So this is the phi nix. The nix, again, the night, the darkness, the point of potentiality, which is the 0, and the phi is the conjoining of the mind and the spirit, which is the mind and the source, which is night and the fire. So you've got the phi nix, which is this reflected in itself, which creates the rings of Saturn. Saturn is the source reflected in itself, if that makes sense. So that's where you get the 8. The 8 is the two rings conjoined together, which is the infinity symbol, and it's reflecting back on itself. I hope I can do this justice as me and my crappy drawings again. Okay, so this is a different interpretation of that image that I showed you with the triangle or the pyramid on the top and then the cube and then the two spheres on the bottom. Now, this is a simplified drawing of the sort of, it's a Kabbalah tree of life again, but in a different form, and this is also what the symbol of Christ is, which goes back to the phoenix again. And so this here is the IXXI, which is the 9/11 that is everywhere. Now, this again is the source and the pyramid, and this is just a different way of writing what was in the other image. So this is the pyramid here. This is the Da'ath behind, which is hidden. And then there's the IXXI. This XX is the cube, and the II are the two borders on the other side. So basically what this is the halls of Amenti, Amenti, and it is you can also look at it as the I and the I. So what Amenti is, Amen. Amen is the sun, and T is cross, and I is the I, and so that is cross-eyed. Amen, cross-eyed, sun. So this is basically, it's like a camera. So the light source of source is projected through the pyramid into the cube, and the cube bounces off the mirrors and is reversed so that we can interpret this reality on the right way around. So halls of Amenti, this is halls of the mind or no mind, and this is the cube, which is the cube of creation, which is the sun, and it is projected from the pyramid. So here's another representation of it. This is Gnostic, but Gnostic is also used in Freemasonry, but if you look at this, it looks exactly like a carousel. Now, this here is the arc of the sky, the dome. This is Nut. Nut is night, is Nui, and that is the source, the all. And then you've got Nu or Anu, which is on the other side of night, Nut, which is Anu, which is not new. Not A is in negation. So Anu is not new. Now, there's a little more to this, and I'll put the drawing in here so you can see a better representation of it. But so there's 5 stars here. I'm not really sure what the 5 stars represent yet, but the stars are all pentagrams, which is back to, you know, the generative power, which is the fire or the spirit, which creates the generative power. And then you've got, on one side you've got the sun, and the other side you've got the moon. So that the sun is the masculine energy and the moon is the feminine energy. And the two of those is the father projection and the mother projection. Now the mother projection is the opposite. The sun projects in and the moon takes. Now this in here is really interesting because it has the triangles, but the triangles are not like a hexagram, which would kind of be what you'd expect, because this is the masculine pointing up, and then the feminine pointing down with Mercury in the middle. Now the feminine isn't quite feminine because it's missing a line. So I don't really know what that's supposed to represent unless it's just a projection, because the sun is the energy that projects into this sphere here, which is L, I believe. And Mercury is the messenger and transmits the message of the stars and the sun and the moon onto the earthly plane. Now, this is, it looks to me like this is the zodiac, which is, this is resting on pillars, and so this is the earthly plane. Now, this is just a projection system. That's all it is. It's like a camera. And so this is really quite fascinating to me. The light source coming in and going out to watch everything that happens on the world stage. It's freaking weird. Now, so the projection system and how it works is when source looks at its reflection or reflects on itself, it no longer is no thing. It becomes self-aware and therefore is not no thing, because the reflection negates the previous state, and therefore the reflection is the negator, is the reflection is not you. So if source is no thing and its reflection is not no thing, and it becomes something, and so it changes its state. So it's not no thing, it is now something. It is it becomes one, the number one, by becoming aware of itself. Sorry, I can't read backwards. Becoming aware of itself, now knowing that it is not nothing. So that's how nothing becomes something. And so it, even though the nothing is actually not nothing. And so becoming self-aware of the fact that it is not nothing is what makes it become something. And in doing so, it is in a dual state of being and reflecting on itself. And so then you create the number two. And so this creates a dual state. And in doing so, and I'll show you in another section, how this perpetuates itself in creation, in replicating itself automatically, because by automatically reflecting on itself, it creates a dual state, thereby creating number two, and that automatically creates 3 states, and then by doing so, that automatically creates 4 states, and 5 states, and 6 states. So it keeps going and going and going. And that's the infinite nature of this reality. So I will show you that a little bit more in a minute. Now, 1 is a very complex number, as much as 0 is, as much as O is. And so what I derived out of 1, just to start off, 0 and N is the negation. And so that right there tells you that it is not 0. And so you've got on is not 0, which is 0 and 1. It's not 1 and 0. It's not 10. It's 0 and 1. So the negation of 0 is 1. No is not 0, but no is actually 10. So it's a reversal of 0 and 1. And oh, no, sorry. 1 is also Om, which is the sustaining sound of creation. And own, so Om is also own. It's a very similar sound. Now, own is Oprah Winfrey Network, which is not by coincidence, OWN. Now, OWN, so letters are interchangeable. Words, because letters are symbols in themselves, letters are interchangeable, and so you can derive multiple words from one word by interchanging the letters and also changing the vowels. Now you've got NWO, which is the New World Order, and NOW, which is now, which is emphasized in Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. and be here now and be present in the now, be in the now. That was constantly a mantra for like all through the 90s and the 2000s. One is like winning in a competition. It's also so On is a city in Egypt, which is the city of the sun, which is what one is. One is the sun, is the male energy, is the male phallic energy, but because it's a reflection of Source, which is feminine and masculine. Source is feminine and masculine, but it is mostly feminine. This is like the womb. So this is what creates all things. So it has to be dominantly feminine. And then when the reflection of itself being not Source has to be masculine, and yet in creating itself, because it is a reflection of itself, it is also feminine. So anyway, this is, for simplicity's sake, we'll say it's masculine, because it is also a phallic representation, which is what Phoenix is. Phoenix is the masculine and the feminine together. This is the 0 is the feminine, and the line is the phallic, which is the masculine. So and that also roots back to Saturn and why androgyny is important, because this is the state of duality joined together with the two rings, the masculine and the feminine being part of one. And then one, we are all one. This is why they keep pushing the we are all one mantra, but we are not all one. We are individual and connected. So Anu is the god of the heavens, which people refer to as the god of the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki are not real. And the Anunnaki is just another interpretation of you. It's the journey of you. So you've got Anu, which is not new. A is also a negation. So you have Anu, not new, which is not new. New is the Nut, is the sky god, or the goddess rather. And it is Nut, Nui, and Night, and Nux. They're all the same. So Nux is Greek, Nui is French, Night is English, Nu is Egyptian, Nut is Egyptian. I think Nu is also Sumerian. Anu is Sumerian, and he is the god of the heavens, and it's also the same as Uranus. So it's not easy to explain, and I know I didn't do a very good job of it, but anyway, I'm doing my best. So next point. So here is a very simplified version of why Source cannot be one, which is what the Kabbalah tree of life tries to tell us, because the Kabbalah tree of life starts with one at the top. Now, Lord Osseron has proved this. This is his work. I don't take any credit for this, but I'm just expounding on it to try to explain it in kind of everyday terms for people who maybe aren't familiar with this Kabbalah tree of life and everything, and all of this sort of more esoteric Gnostic information. So I hope I can do this justice. Now, 0 being Source, or the source of all things, or no thing, when it's reflected on itself, it becomes aware of itself, and therefore it becomes something. It is aware that it is something. Therefore, it is no longer 0, it is 1. And in becoming 1, it becomes a dual state of 1, 0, and 1. So that becomes 2. If the 1 is the source of all things, and as the Kabbalah tree of life tells us that it is, and it doesn't start with 0, it starts with 1, then the negation of 1, remember the line here represents the negation, or the mirror, the reflection of itself. And so if 1 is reflected on itself, it sees itself. And so the 1, I got some notes here so I don't have to look backwards. I didn't write it all up there. Anyway, so if the 1 is reflected on itself, it is already something. It knows itself to be something. It can't be nothing by its very definition. It's not possible. So if the one is something and it's reflected on itself, and the mirror is the negation of the self, it either becomes 1 again or 0. And so if it becomes 0, then the something becomes nothing. And so that's going backwards, which is destruction. And that's what we have going on right now. And that's a whole other video. But anyway, that's where I'm thinking that the tens is the mind virus, because the tens is the negation of the 0, 1. And so what is real is the 0, 1. But when you flip that, which is all of this is about reflection and mirrors, and if you flip that, then you get 10, which is the negation of the 0, 1. And so that's why I think 10 is the mind virus. So anyway, it's just taking us further and further away from original source, which is who we really are. And so if you look, this is 1 and 0 is 10. So hold on a second. Okay, so here's what I mean. So in the previous clips, I was showing you how when 0 is reflected on itself, it becomes something. So nothing becomes something. It is a negation of nothing becomes something. So that in that case, it becomes 0, 1 is a dual state. So this dual state, 1 reflecting on itself becoming nothing, which is not possible, is 10, which is the reflection of this. So you just draw a little line in between here. This is becoming the reflection of all that is. This is true reality, and this is the reflection of true reality, which is the negation of reality. And that's what's going on. They're removing us from reality. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so if something is reflected on itself with the 1 and the 1 up there, then you're reflecting on yourself. It's not you. It's a reflection of you. And so you're just looking at yourself, which is narcissism. It's two states, but it's literally the same state. So there's no motion. You're not, with the 0, 1, there's motion. So this motion here automatically generates itself. Here, you're degenerating yourself, which isn't possible, but anyway. And then this doesn't go anywhere. It's stagnation. It's just you're reflecting on yourself, you're studying yourself, you're focused on yourself, and you're not going anywhere. There's no movement, there's no growth, there's no change. You're just looking at yourself, total stagnation. This is destruction and death. This is looking at the negation of you. Like I was saying before, that's what transhumanism is. It's the negation of the true reality. So now, this will help explain a little bit more about all of it. This is the Hall of Mirrors. We live in a Hall of Mirrors. Now, everything is a reflection of itself. And so, like I was saying before, 0 reflecting on itself becomes 1. And in doing so, automatically becomes 2. Right? So there's two states. So you get 0 and 1, this reflection, so really it should be parallel to each other. But anyway, just to keep consistent, I put it this way. So 0 reflecting on itself becomes 1. And those two are automatically 2 states. And in creating those 2 states, you automatically create 3 states, which automatically creates 4 states, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and then 9. And 9 is the number of completion. And you can only do this if you start with 0. And 9 is the number of completion because if you add all these numbers together, you get 27, which is 9. And 0 being no thing, and 9 being outside of these numbers, because if you add these all up, if you even add the 9, it still becomes 9. 9 disappears and becomes nothing. So you have 0 and 9 are the same. It's just a reflection of itself. 9 is the number of completion. So within 0, this being the reflection of 0 and the breakdown of 0, it has all these numbers in it and loops back on itself, because 8 is the loop. 8 loops back on itself to create, this is the material world in between the 0 and the 9. And Lord Osborne does a really good explanation of this. in his videos, so I highly recommend that you go and look at them because I can't even do them justice. Now, he's been at it way longer than I have. But anyway, this is what's happening in between the 0 and the 9. The 0 and the 9 essentially are the halls of Amenti. So there's another way of looking at it, is like ripples in a pond. You start with 0, and then the ripple, the ring that comes out in a ripple, if you throw a stone in the water, it ripples out, you get 1, but you automatically get 2, and then you automatically get 3. So even though 0 is nothing, it still exists. The 1 and the 8 is an octave. You got 8 notes in a scale, and then you go back down to the beginning of the scale again, which is the 0 and the 9 are the ones that separate the scales, which is why this is a universe. It is a one song. It's all music and numbers. And so everything can be brought down to music and numbers. Basically, like, this is the Hall of Mirrors. It's holofractal reflections of self. It's just constantly looking at oneself. In doing so, it automatically expands, and yet it's still all within one thing. That is the Hall of Mirrors. So we live in a fun house, a carousel and a Hall of Mirrors in a house of horrors. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.